Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Welcome to another episode of Found Footage Fridays with my co-host Tom Howard.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I guess you can continue to come back at this point.
Thank you. How many of these have we done now? We're
60?
It's got to be near 60.
It's got to be close to 60 because the 50th was like 2 months ago.
Anybody who claims they don't have a new found footage movie to watch, have you looked through our library of episodes? Because I think we have a few recommendations at this point.
We do. We've covered old, new, big one, like super popular ones. Yep. Some people never heard of.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're talking this week about one that's very new, right?
Yes, just came out like maybe a month ago or something like that. Maybe not even that long. Anyway, I don't know, but it's brand new.
And if you like what we talk about today, it's free on Tubi. So
that's true. So today we're talking the 2023 found footage film Resurrected. The short synopsis for this one is: things get interesting when the Vatican finds a way to bring people back to life.
Things get interesting. That is an interesting way to avoid talking about what this movie is about.
We're not to the spoiler section. I think that's pretty much what the synopsis said on IMDb anyway. It's just
things get interesting.
It says a priest. It says a priest gets involved when the Vatican is keeping, I don't know, whatever. So, but it's concise. Yeah. Little bit of buzz around this one.
A little bit.
Yeah. People are posting about it on socials. One of the Facebook groups I finally joined after Tom's been talking about being in Facebook groups, and I was like, oh, one day I'm going to do that too. And I finally joined some. That's like when I was scrolling through it the other day, probably actually when I messaged you about it, I was like, dang, every single post was people watching Resurrected, and The Wendigo is also super popular in that group.
What you'll find is when there's a new one that pops up on Tubi, because Tubi's free and anyone can watch, everyone watches those. The newer ones that pop up on Tubi in those forums, everyone's eating those up. So,
which is great. That's great for the subgenre. Yeah. We're happy about that. But yeah, what were your kind of initial thoughts on this one?
So I'm curious what you think. I feel like when the movie first started, I was concerned that it was not going to be one I was going to enjoy. The beginning of the movie was probably intentionally upsetting, and there's certain sort of no-go sort of topics with me, and I felt like the beginning of this movie was tough, was rough, and I stuck with it. I'm glad I did. I think you sort of hinted to me that maybe I wouldn't like the beginning of this movie, but it got really good. It's really different.
Yes.
Unlike any found footage movie I have seen before. I will say, I think it toes the line as far as a found footage movie goes.
Yes, I would agree. Yep.
Borderline. It's found footage. It's found footage, but it's as close as you can be to being found footage and not being found footage.
Yeah. I would agree. I hated the beginning of this.
Yeah.
I came really close to giving up. I genuinely did, because I didn't just think that the beginning was upsetting. I thought it was absurd. I thought it was absolutely absurd. I was like I posted about it. I think I posted the movie poster maybe on Instagram. I try to share when I'm watching stuff. And I was like, this is the single most ridiculous premise for the start of a movie I have ever seen. It was
the premise. It wasn't just the opening scene.
No, it was. Well, because I went into it blind. I didn't know anything about this movie. So I shouldn't say premise. Yeah. I meant setup. So the setup for the first scene had me so angry and annoyed. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to finish this movie. This is gonna really upset me in not a fun way. And I was like, okay, so, but like you said, I was like, all right, let's just get through a little bit more of it before I start making my decision. And then it gets into the actual story. And then I was really invested and I felt very differently. But yeah, the beginning almost caused me to exit out.
Yeah. Should we say what that is, or is that too spoilery?
I don't know. I didn't
mean, it's
watch
sort
the
of spoilery
trailer.
because
It's probably in the trailer for it. If I had to guess, the trailer probably has that scene and then goes into clips from the rest of the movie.
yeah, probably.
So I don't think it would be too spoilery to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the movie starts off with the dad and his son coming back from a baseball game, talking to his wife and the boy's mother on the phone, and basically, like, he admits as he's driving that he's been drinking, which upsetting in itself. But he's driving. His son's sitting in the front seat. He shouldn't be. He should be in the back seat. And the dad's like joking about that. Yep. Of course he gets in a car accident. And of course it's a tragedy. You can just guess where that goes.
Yeah.
But it very quickly turns around and a priest comes to the mother and says, "We can help you." A real cemetery vibe, I guess, because we don't exactly know what's happening, but the church has a way to bring people back from the dead, to resurrect them. We don't know how, but that's basically where the movie starts off.
Yeah.
And the main character from the beginning is now a priest. Was he a priest beforehand? No, he becomes a priest as a result of all this.
Yeah.
And
he's essentially our main character after that point.
Yeah.
His story is more about like him and his experiences than everything else. But
in a way, he's been excommunicated from his family to the priesthood. And it's really, you really feel for the guy. But like you immediately kind of moves him. And I think it's supposed to be in the future, right? It's supposed to be, I don't know, 2027 or something like that, right?
It's a bit forward, I think. I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, eventually it is. Like it jumps in.
Yes.
Yeah. So what did you think?
Yeah. So, I think you know this. I love religion and horror. Yep. Especially things that toe the line of like really questioning the standards of morality, and really really putting pressure on the concepts of like organized religion and the power that the church and religion can have over people and whatever. And this hits that like right on the head for me. This is a very much what I would consider also be like a social commentary. Like this film has a lot of things in it that really, if you wanted to break them down and look at them from like a more political side of things, you absolutely could. It's, as far as the religion stuff goes. Yeah. So I really ended up liking this one a lot. I think there's a couple weak links in the acting, but I felt like the premise and the mystery and the evolution of this concept of resurrection over the course of the 8 years or however long it's been, like all of that stuff that leads into like our bigger storyline. I thought all of that was really good. Like I was kind of meh coming out of that opening scene. And I remember sitting in my bed watching it, and I was like watching, and it kind of switches gears. And I was like, what? Like I was like really into it after a little while. So, yeah, I think the premise is unique. The execution was really good. I thought it looked good. It seemed pretty believable. The only real major weaknesses for me is the opening is a big one. Yeah. And then of course the some of the acting like just was not super great in my opinion, but otherwise pretty solid movie.
I think what I had the hardest time with just sort of, this is a kind of overarching thing with this movie, is that it felt a little too, the scale of this felt a little too grand for found footage, in that it takes place over a span of many years. It takes place all over the world. Like there's this worldwide
You're right.
thing that happens. And I feel like the idea of found footage is too small to contain the idea of this movie. Does that make sense? Like, it just felt like found footage is supposed to be like people running through the woods screaming, and this is like this felt epic in a way that was just didn't quite fit the boundaries of found footage. Although the vast majority of this was filmed either on a cell phone or on the guy's computer. But sometimes I don't like it when there's something it's a found footage movie, but there's no there's no way that it's all sort of like contained. So is this a mockumentary? No, it's not a mockumentary. Is this footage that was collected and then shown to us at a later date? Nope, there's no. It's just you're just seeing randomly through this guy's computer, and there needs to be some sort of framework or structure around it that makes it feel like it's found footage or at minimum a mockumentary. And this movie didn't feel like any of those things. And we have seen other movies like that don't really say where the footage is coming from. But I think that it loses something when we have a movie like this because I think one of the best things about found footage is that, like, as I've said many times before, that little inkling, you know this isn't real, but like that little inkling where you can sort of trick yourself, like, this feels like it could be real. Well, it can't be real if there's no one saying this is footage that we found or this is a mockumentary where you could pretend a little bit. Nothing like that sort of exists around this movie.
No, and to your point, the existence of the footage doesn't make sense given the rest of the story, because it wouldn't exist. It would have been erased.
Right. And who put it all together for us to consume?
Yeah. It goes against the entire concept of the movie.
Yeah. It feels more like just another movie that happens to be filmed through somebody's computer.
That's true. I don't disagree. I agree with that. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's found footage. It's just, we're being nitpicky here. But I thought the guy who played the real priest was great. And I don't want to say too much more before we give our ratings, though. So
okay, you want me to go first this time?
You go first this time. Yeah.
Good. So I was very pleasantly surprised with this one. I definitely have some complaints. I agree with what you're saying. Like I said, I hated the opening. I thought there were some weak links in the acting. Conceptually, I really enjoyed the concepts, and I was even really happy with the way that it ended. It was kind of drab, but in a way that I liked it. So I would give Resurrected 7 out of 10 tapes.
7 out of 10. Pretty good. Yeah.
I didn't dislike most, and it's kind of like I've talked about this too with like our dinosaur adventures and our monster found footage movies. Like, I tend to judge things based off concepts, and if the concepts are strong, it will typically get a higher rating from me, even if there's some weaknesses in the execution. So the concept of this was one that I loved, and so that automatically pushed it up, whereas,
Yeah. Well, since like, I rate a lot on like literally the feeling I get. Like, did this scare me?
Yeah.
Was I terrified? Was there, something there in that? And this is not a movie where I would say you're going to get scared. Well, I mean, I don't think. Some people, you might be scared of the Catholic Church. I don't know
if you're not already.
Yeah. I would definitely think you are right, and this is a commentary on the Catholic Church in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I'm going to give this a 6.5 tapes.
Okay. That's pretty
out
good.
of 10. Yeah, pretty good. But because I really did, I think that rating is as high as it is because I think it really is a unique concept. I just didn't find myself like scared or jumping or anything like that with this movie, which I kind of want a little bit with found footage.
I think this is more of a there's like a difference between being scared and being like a little uncomfortable, like, the level of discomfort and that has a lot to do with the themes in this. It's got some cult stuff kind of feeling to it. There's like a bunch of stuff going on, and so there were moments where I was like uncomfortable, but I was never scared. Those are two, completely different feelings.
This felt like it could have been like a big budget thriller, like almost like if they took away sort of how they filmed it and just filmed it sort of
third person.
You know,
yeah,
it could have been any big budget 90s action movie thriller. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I feel. But yeah. So it's still really solid. So
yeah,
probably should spoil it a little bit, I guess.
yeah, we can do that. Let's spoil it.
Yeah. So the priest, he gets a second chance, and his in a couple of ways. His son is resurrected. Only really lives with his mother, with the son's mother, and the dad, who's now a priest, is only sort of in his kid's life because of what he did. The son is now, at this point, the son is the first person to be resurrected in this manner. Again, we don't know how the church is. We never find out, right? How the church is resurrecting people.
Nope. There's a blue light and it messes up the camera, and that's it.
Something happens.
Yep.
And you find out, like, millions of people are now getting resurrected, and there are ways to go about applying, and they have to make sure before the church decides, you have to join the church. Basically, of course, it's a recruiting tool, and they're able to go through your whole life, your personal life, to find out if you're worthy of being saved. And it just becomes this worldwide phenomenon, which is what I was sort of saying, sort of feels outside of the realm of found footage. But anyways, and the priest, the father, is now a counselor to people who have been resurrected, who are trying to, like, get back to their lives. And the son is now, like, a lecturer and speaker worldwide, a very famous person. And slowly but surely, things start to unravel, and people who have been resurrected something starts happening to them, right? And they start losing it. They start doing horrible things, and it's unclear if something is just snapping inside them or if they're all just getting together to.
I think it's meant to kind of be this commentary about everyone being sinners, right? Like, the Catholic Church paints this picture, like, you can only be resurrected if you're pure and, like, you don't do things, but it's like human nature to do some of these things, not the murdering, but I think it's just more of like a general thing of, like, human nature. Like, you can think what someone is capable of based on their past, but you don't actually know. And what I thought was interesting, and I don't know if you made this connection or not, but I don't, like, the ones that we actually learn about, the resurrected people that are actually doing the bad things, other than the son stuff, they do things that are related to how they died. So
really?
Yeah. So there was, what was the one that caught my attention? Oh, I'm trying to remember now. So the guy that, like, kills his family, he was stabbed.
Okay.
The construction worker that pushed people off of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure he died of a falling death. Like, something happened to him and he got hurt, and that's how he died. There was one about a car, something about a car accident, and then this person using their car to, like, drive on people or something. I can't remember exactly what that one was, but it seemed like the connection a lot of the times was it was things that they remembered before they died. Like, whatever happened was, like, yeah. Which I thought some of that was kind of cool. There may have been some that weren't like that, but I thought it was a pattern. That's how I looked at it. But yeah, this is cool. Like, I liked the stuff with, like, the virtual church and, like, seeing, because there's so many people now flocking to the Catholic Church because they want the opportunity to be brought back to life if they die.
Right.
And so then you've got him, the dad stands in that box and he's got the goggles and he's, like, in a virtual church with, like, 1 million.
He's like an avatar.
Yeah, like, people online, and it shows, like, the count of how many people.
Weird.
Like, and you're just like, oddly, that was like, for me, because I'm like,
but couldn't you see that, like, happening? Like, I mean, the church, I know, they're starving for new members now, and with all the stuff that's been covered up. You could see them. This whole movie is about the church covering up something else again, right? Like,
yeah.
And who the heck knows what they're actually doing that they're hiding? And it just, there's definitely a message there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what I was going to say next, but it's there's this whole worldwide cover up that he's slowly starting to discover, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, because I do enjoy that theme so much, which if you're a fan of the show, you'll know, because we've talked about other things that have this theme in them. But for me, the other thing that I thought was really interesting was, there's always this argument of like, oh, there's a separation of church and state. There's not, but we say that there is. And so then it's interesting, because then it was like the Catholic Church had all these people into all these positions of power. So like the agent that was investigating the stuff was actually like a resurrected and was actually working to help them cover up the cases, and then trying to pin it on their counselors, the priests that were counseling. Because if you go through if you're resurrected for what I think he said, like the first year or maybe 6 months or something, you have to go through counseling to help you get adjusted. And so every person that's been resurrected reports to a priest at some, for however long. And so you've got like that element, and then you've got the whole thing with like the cherubs, which are the hackers.
That, like, so detailed. Yeah.
People like did. I'm just like, man, this would actually make a really good book, like a really good novel.
That's what I mean, though. It's like epic. The scale of it is more than you typically see with this kind of movie. One thing I will say is pretty consistent with other movies that I've seen where people have been brought back from the dead. I think in every movie I've seen where someone gets brought back from the dead, it's always bad news. It never is a good idea. And this is 100% the case in this movie. They should not be bringing back, however they're doing it. It's a mistake, and they shouldn't be bringing people back. And they probably figure it out at some point, but can't get away from it because it's helping their church. So they want to keep hiding it.
That's true too.
Yeah. But I can't think of a movie really where, at least the horror, I guess that's what makes these horror movies, right? Where you're bringing people back.
It's always that whole, like, doing things against nature, right? Like, it starts with like, Frankenstein, and we just work our way up.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, when you bring people back, they come back wrong. They're different. They're missing something, or there's just something, that wasn't there before that is now. And it's like, and like they all kept saying the same stuff, like, oh, if you've seen what we've seen, you'd understand. Basically, like, y'all should have left me dead. Like,
yep. Absolutely. Yep.
And I the son being, it was interesting because I pegged this pretty early in the film. I knew he was going to be part of the problem.
Yeah, but I didn't figure it out right away.
I had a feeling, I didn't know which direction they were going to go. I wasn't thinking like this online group of people. Like, I wasn't thinking in that level, but I was thinking like he was definitely going to do something to hurt somebody at some point. I wasn't sure, where those pieces were going to fall. But like when he chose to do it with the chips, or the whatever they're called, the body of Christ tokens, whatever for the communion.
Yeah.
For Easter Sunday or whatever. I was like, when he had all those people there and he was giving them that, I instantly was like, oh no.
Yep.
He's gonna poison this whole group of people. I knew that was going to end badly.
Which he did. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cultish. Actually.
That was the part I was talking about. That definitely gave me some like Jim Jones energy.
Yeah.
It wasn't Kool-Aid, but it was Christ crackers or whatever. It's just like, oh yeah.
What was the name of that other episode we did? What movie was that?
The Jim Sacrament.
Jones, The Sacrament. Yes.
The one about Jamestown or Jonestown, but it was called something else.
Yes.
Eden's Parish is what it's called.
That's what it was. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was all really good, and I really liked the way that. What did you think of the ending of this? Did you like the ending?
I'm blanking on exactly what happens at the very end of the movie.
Where they frame it like he killed it, like that he was part of this like bigger thing, and he was the one, like the dad was the one that it was. They basically made it like a conspiracy against him and pushing
That's
it off
exactly.
of the blame.
That's exactly what would happen. They would absolutely, or if this was real, which it's not, but if it was, I feel like that's exactly how this would go.
1000% agree.
They pin it on somebody else. They wouldn't want this miracle to end because it's bringing all these new these sheep into the flock, right? Yeah, that's exactly what would happen.
Well, and they're talking about, they even added the smuggling in bodies element of like people trying to bring bodies in to be resurrected from like other countries. And like, you're just like, what the world? But see, that's the thing is like, as big as this story is to me, other than the actual part about the resurrection, but as far as all of the stuff around it, that all felt very real to me. Like, I'm like, this is, if this were a real thing, this is exactly what would happen then.
I agree. Yep.
And that made, and I loved the character Rat that played his cherub, the cherub that, worked with him. I thought she was great. I really liked her, like her character and like her involvement and stuff. And I thought that was really cool because, they clear him originally, and then he gets on the video like the next day or the same day with one of his clients, I guess, whatever you'd call him. Mm-hmm. And he like murdered his whole family. And he's just standing there covered in blood. And he's like, not again. Like, guys, I just got through this.
No,
and I gotta go through this again.
I liked that character too, Rat. She's the one who made it feel like I could see this being some like, thriller, like espionage sort of spy thriller or whatever. Or like,
the stuff she gets in there and she's like messing around on computers and
it had that feel. It had that feel.
That was good. No, I like hacker characters in general. They usually are my favorites and in almost anything, even if it's not horror related. But I liked her character a lot, and I liked their dynamic a lot. She just was like, "Why are you calling me?" And it turns from that to like she was genuinely worried about him, and oh my god, in the shot where she gets killed.
Oh, terrible. Yeah,
that was brutal. That caught me a little bit off guard. I didn't think that was going to happen.
I saw that one coming right then. Yeah.
But that one was sad.
So yeah, this is really, I would say, I think people who like found footage will like this movie, but it's probably really different than what most people are going into found footage looking for. I don't think that means you won't like it. I just think it's different.
Yeah.
In a good way.
If you're watching at this point, it's a little too late for me to say this, but I'm going to say it as a general comment anyway. I think this is one that is more beneficial to go in blind.
I definitely went in blind.
I did too. I didn't know anything about it. I just kept seeing it everywhere. And I was like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. I feel like if you knew what this was fully about, I bet.
That's a weird precedent in your head, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's better to go into this one blind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I really like this one. I like the sad and not so happy ending because I was like, that would be reality. Yeah.
I mean, this isn't one of those that there's no excuse. It's on Tubi. Everybody's talking about it right now.
Why aren't you watching it?
Watch it. It's worth a watch. It's really good.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Well, we don't know what we're doing next.
Gotta talk. Gotta figure it out.
Okay. Well, that's our thoughts on the 2023 found footage movie Resurrected. Also, I feel weird that like we didn't know about this. I didn't hear about this until it was already out.
Our last two episodes are ones we didn't know, and I love it. So, one or both of these were ones we sort of just heard about on the grapevine. So, if you have any recommendations of ones we're missing that we haven't talked about that we should be, that especially if it just came out or sometime recently, let us know.
Yeah,
we definitely want to cover it.
We do watch movies that are recommended to us.
Yeah.
We've done a few that have been recommends.
We've even done a couple of screeners recently, which is really cool. So if you have one, let us know.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Found Footage Fridays. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy your week coming up. And Tom and I will see you next week.
See you next week.